We are told that Pechersky's original plan for escape was to dig a narrow underground tunnel out of the camp. We see on page 311, according to the plan, its height and width would have to be 75 by 75 centimeters, and it would need to be 80 centimeters beneath the Earth's surface, so that it would not touch the mine holes. It could not go any deeper because there was a danger that it might strike water. He goes on to write, the digging progressed smoothly for a few days, but on October 8th and 9th, heavy rains fell on the camp and water penetrated the tunnel and flooded it completely. When Cybulski entered the tunnel on the night of October 9th, he found it utterly wrecked. The tunnel escape plan had to be abandoned. This brings up an interesting question. Why is it that rain is never mentioned as a problem with the outdoor cremation process? We've seen models, maps, and testimony. There isn't even a piece of elevated corrugated metal high above the fires to protect them from the rain, as seen here with the Laponder model of Treblinka, or here with the Blatt model of Sobibor. The fire always sits out in the open, where rain would put it out. In reading Arad and Hilberg, I never found a passage mentioning rain as a problem. They mention problems, but not with rain. For instance, on page 100, Arad writes, the frequent engine breakdowns caused disturbances and delays in the entire extermination process. An engine not starting is a problem few civilians even have with their car or truck. Can you believe that that, of all things, would be the problem they mention? Maybe the cremations didn't happen during the rainy season. Except then we look in Arad on page 170 and read, the cremation of the corpses in the camps of Sobibor and Belzec began in the autumn of 1942 and in Treblinka in March 1943. Here's Claude Lanzmann on the right in his movie Shoah. It's Disc 1, Chapter 29. Lanzmann is visiting Treblinka sometime in the 70s or early 80s and interviewing people there.
Dużo się robiło, wie pani, dużo. Tak sobie pomyślisz, to nie da rady, żeby to człowiek, bo ja wiem, żeby to człowiek człowiekowi tak robił.
Maintenant, quand on y pense, on comprend pas comment un homme puisse faire ça à un autre être humain.
Wie pani, jak
When the Treblinka, Belzec, and Sobibor story was made up, it didn't dawn on the storytellers that rain would create a logistical problem with the story. There's some irony here in that Lanzmann is at Treblinka, hearing about how Treblinka happened, but he's also documenting how the outdoor cremations couldn't have happened because he's documenting the rain. We see logistical problems with the story, thanks to Lanzmann's footage. In this next part, watch the background right here.
On ne comprend pas.
Żydzi chcieli wody, nie? No i chodził Ukrainiec.
No
No i nie kazał podać, nie da.
That was Treblinka. Here we have Lanzmann documenting the weather at Sobibor, Disc 2, Chapter 4. But Belzec is only around 70 miles south, so he's sort of documenting the weather there too. Arad writes on page 177, in Belzec, all 600,000 victims had been buried already when the cremation started. During a period of 4 to 5 months, they had to be unearthed and burned. This was the sole reason for the continued existence of the camp, along with its entire personnel, until the spring of 1943. So we're supposed to believe that the Germans would choose as the best cremation method for the equivalent of the spectators of 6.5 Rose Bowl stadiums, an outdoor cremation fire in weather like this. In the following passage, see if you can spot the inherent contradiction. It's in the trial testimony of SS officer Heinrich Gley, seen in Yitzhak Arad's book on page 172. As I remember, the gassing stopped at the end of 1942 when snow was already falling. Then the unearthing and cremation of the corpses began. It lasted from November 1942 until March 1943. The cremation was conducted day and night without interruption. We see when snow was already falling and day and night without interruption. And I guess the surface of the ground freezing was no problem either, for digging out the bodies, even though Lanzmann documented that too for us.
En hiver, il fait très froid ici.
W zimie tu jest bardzo zimno?
U nas
Tak.
to zależy. To
Ça
wie
dépend.
pani nawet do 25 do 30 mróz.
Parfois, il y a même moins 25, moins 30.
So for Fahrenheit, that's between 5 degrees and -4. To cremate a body, you need heat, and the problem with an outdoor fire is you lose most of your heat to the outside air, particularly if there's wind. Strange that the Germans, known for being efficient, are using such an inefficient method. A simple 5-foot-high brick wall on one side of the cremation grill would reflect much-needed heat back toward the bodies, and also protect the fire from the wind. But we're supposed to believe that the Germans didn't even do that. The fire sits out in the open. It's because the storytellers were not familiar with building outdoor fires. Thus, in the Peters model and Laponder model of Treblinka seen here, and in the descriptions in Hilberg and Arad, we find that there was no wall. Consider this when looking at the following text in Arad on page 176. Moreover, the fire and billowing smoke from the roaster could be seen for miles around. They were evident even at Treblinka Penal Camp 1, located 3 kilometers away. This is confusing, but there was another camp called Treblinka 1, which was not a death camp, but a labor camp, located a little less than 2 miles away. We'll start again. Moreover, the fire and billowing smoke from the roaster could be seen for miles around. They were evident even at Treblinka Penal Camp 1, located 3 kilometers away. A prisoner at Treblinka 1 described what he saw. The spring winds brought with them the smell of burning bodies from the nearby extermination camp. We breathed in the stench of smoldering corpses. We heard the clatter of the excavators for days and nights on end. At night we gazed at skies red from the flames. Sometimes you could also see tongues of flames rising into the night. So we have the spring winds that blow smoke nearly 2 miles away, and yet the fires don't even have a wall on one side to reflect the heat and protect from the wind. It gets worse though. The storytellers didn't know how to build an outdoor fire. Listen to this on page 173 in Arad, from a document used in Joseph Oberhauser's trial. The corpses were laid in layers, alternated with a layer of wood. So they put down a layer of bodies, then a layer of wood, then a layer of bodies, then a layer of wood. Anyone who's ever built an outdoor fire knows that wouldn't work. This is an urban demographic talking about something they don't know about. Or on page 174, Arad writes, the cremating structure consisted of a roaster made from 5 or 6 railroad rails laid on top of 3 rows of concrete pillars, each 70 centimeters high. That is 2 feet 3.5 inches, which isn't much higher than a campfire. Here's another description on page 175. There, another special team, called the Burning Group, Feuerkolonne, removed the corpses from the stretchers and arranged them in layers on the roaster to a height of 2 meters. 2 meters is 6.5 feet, so with room under the rails not much higher than a campfire, they're saying you could then stack the bodies 6.5 feet high. The bodies on top wouldn't even get warm, let alone be cremated. Arad never mentions adding more wood to the fire, nor does he mention anyone rotating the bodies on the bottom layer with the upper layers. Rather, it's described like this on page 176. The body burning went on day and night. The corpses were transferred and arranged on the roasters during the day. At nightfall they were lit, and they burned throughout the night. When the fire went out, there was only skeletons or scattered bones on the roasters, and piles of ash underneath. Yankel Wiernik wasn't the only eyewitness to say that bodies burn on their own. Here is Yekiel Reichman. We see a lack of fire knowledge, all of which he attributes to an SS burning expert. The SS expert on body burning ordered us to put women, particularly fat women, on the first layer on the grill, face down. The second layer could consist of whatever was brought, men, women, or children, and so on, layer on top of layer. Then the expert ordered us to lay dry branches under the grill and to light them. Within a few minutes the fire would take, so it was difficult to approach the crematorium from as far as 50 meters away, which is 54 yards, around half a football field. Yes, just lay some dry branches under the grill. The logistical part of Reichmann's account is so bad that we know he's not telling the truth. Bodies don't burn like wood logs on outdoor fires, yet he's quoted and used as a source frequently in Arad's book. Going from page 175 to page 216, we see another Yechiel Reichmann quote, which I won't read, where he gets a little carried away with the emotional content, beseechingly asking, "Where is God when they are murdering the newborn children?"